Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday night. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. It's the go-to emergency number, but tonight 911 is not working correctly across Billings, Yellowstone County, as well as other parts of the state and country.
Fire Chief Bill Rash says the Billings City County Dispatch Center is not receiving some 911 calls through Verizon wireless services. And tonight we are learning more about the widespread issue.
Chief Rash tells Q2 Verizon is working on a solution, but doesn't know when 911 services will be fully restored.
A complaint started coming in on Saturday, but officials have now been able to identify a pattern with the incomplete calls. The problem, when people on Verizon call 911 in this area, they are met with the message, this number is unavailable.
Now, if you're unable to make contact with the 911 center immediately, you should call 406-657-8200 to report your emergency.
It's a life safety issue. We just want to make sure we get the message out there. If you call 911 and specifically if you're a Verizon on Verizon wireless, and you can't make contact with the 911 center and you get a cannot connect or whatever else, to call 657-8200, and our 911 operators will be manning that phone and they'll be able to take that emergency call.
Now, this issue also impacting Verizon customers in the Bozeman-Gallatin County area tonight.
And we've also seen reports about the same issues with Verizon today as far away as San Diego.
Well, hopefully that issue will be corrected quickly, because on the weather scene, Bob, the threat board is filling up fast.
Yes, indeed. And let me show you the reason why for that. It's a huge monster storm making its way to the Central Plains, and it's going to be slinging copious amounts of moisture and snowfall through Wyoming. Wyoming's calling it the biggest snowstorm since 1978, and that stuff is moving right on into Montana. Look at this. Here's our threat board. And you'll notice in the southeast corner of the state in the red, those are blizzard warnings. 5 to 9 inches of snow in Carter and also Powder River County, plus 35 to 45 mile per hour winds, going to cause a lot of blowing and drifting snow. Same thing in northern eastern Wyoming, 8 to 13 inches of snow. In Rosebud and Bighorn County, 6 to 8 inches of snow with a winter storm warning. And around the Billings area, you could see maybe 2 to 5 inches of snow there. Out in the west, there's another storm developing out there. Look at all the snow possible in that area. So we got a couple of big storms all coming together right over Montana and right over the rest of the Midwest. We'll have more about that coming your way in a few more minutes.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob.
The former Miles City athletic trainer accused of sex crimes involving teenage athletes pleads guilty today in federal court.
MTN's Kent Lutzen was in the courtroom and brings us the latest from Missoula.
That's right. Former Miles City athletic trainer James Jensen appeared in federal court on Tuesday in Missoula. Judge Dana Christensen accepted his guilty plea of using the internet to coerce underage boys for sex. On Tuesday, James Jensen, 79 years old, wearing an orange jumpsuit, was pushed into the courtroom using a wheelchair. This is where he pled guilty to using the internet to develop a so-called program, a system he used to coerce 100 young male athletes into sexual acts. Jensen made them believe it would increase their physical performance. Jensen says he received all these teachings from the internet. In the early part of Tuesday's hearing, Judge Dana Christensen spent a majority of the time going over Jensen's mental capacity, his understanding of the plea change from not guilty to guilty, making sure Jensen was aware of what was happening and the charge against him. Later, the defense picked apart the prosecution's criminal complaint. Jensen admitted to one case of oral sex, but denied digital penetration. Jensen added he has no recollection of phone calls with young boys about the program, but did keep some sort of logbook. He also says he doesn't remember inappropriate hernia checks on young wrestlers in Watford City, North Dakota. Yet one sexual abuse survivor recalls that interaction. However, Jensen does admit to doing hernia checks in Miles City. Despite the objections, both the prosecutors and the defense agreed there was enough evidence to move forward with the guilty plea. Prosecutors did add internet searches on Jensen's computer were consistent with an interest in children. The potential sentence for this charge is a maximum 15 years in prison, up to 3 years, supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. Now a pre-sentencing investigation will be underway. Jensen will be sentenced on July 30th of this year in Billings. Reporting outside the federal building in Missoula, Kent Lutzen, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Ken. Jensen also faces state criminal charges after a worker told authorities she saw child pornography in his Miles City apartment.
Northwestern Energy, the state's largest electric and gas utility, is asking regulators to approve a 7.4% increase for its 300,000 residential users. But the rate case is not without controversy. As MTN's Mike Dennison reports, the cost and future of Northwestern's share of the Colstrip 4 power plant has become a flashpoint.
Last month, environmental groups and other parties in the rate case submitted written testimony on the coal-fired power plants in Colstrip. Part of that testimony said Northwestern Energy's share of the Colstrip 4 plant is valued too highly, and that customers will overpay for the plant going forward.
We think that customers have already been gouged, are already paying an inflated price for Colstrip. We don't want that to continue. We don't want it to get worse than it already is.
Northwestern not only disagrees, but also has asked the Public Service Commission to strike all testimony in the case about the future value of Colstrip or its closure plans. At a hearing before the Commission Tuesday, Northwestern attorney Ann Hill said the environmental groups want to use the rate case to pursue their goal of shutting down Colstrip.
This case is not about closing Colstrip. This case is about the investments we've made and the expenses we incur because Colstrip is still operating.
But the groups told the PSC that Northwestern is mischaracterizing their testimony and the law. Chuck McGraw, a lawyer for the Natural Resources Defense Council, said the PSC has full power to regulate utilities, including the relevance and future of Colstrip.
The statutory scheme under which this commission operates is completely at odds with Northwestern's views about what this commission can and can't consider.
The groups say if Colstrip remains in rates at an overvalued price, it also would discourage development of other, cheaper sources of power.
We want to make sure that customers are protected from a monopoly utility wanting to gouge them and put more money into a failing resource when in fact there are cheaper ways to generate electricity.
The PSC will decide soon whether to allow this testimony on Colstrip, which could be a key part of the case, or not. It will also consider testimony from a dozen other witnesses, including industrial customers and consumer advocates. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And tomorrow, Mike looks at a big change that Northwestern is proposing for rates that affect installers, future users of rooftop solar power systems.
President Trump officially put his signature on the public lands bill after it passed overwhelmingly in both the House and Senate. Montana U.S. Senator Steve Daines was there for the ceremony at the White House, calling it a big day for Montana and a big day for America.
Of course, what we see from this bill will be a key win for LWCF, allowing permanent reauthorization now, which brings together certainty where there was uncertainty about whether or not Congress would reauthorize the program. It's now permanently reauthorized. And then second, certainly the Yellowstone Gateway Protection Act.
Well, the bill permanently reauthorizes the Land and Water Conservation Fund. There is still a fight ahead to fund it. The president's budget includes only around 10% of the full $900 million it's authorized to receive. Well, Democratic Senator Jon Tester also praised the passage of the public lands bill. He criticized the president for cutting funds to LWCF. He says it's easy to understand why folks hate Washington when politicians cheer on the president as he signs a bill to authorize LWCF just one day after trying to gut its funding. I hope the president's cheerleaders put money where their mouth is and fully fund the critical conservation initiative. Now, both Tester and Daines are on the Appropriations Committee, and Daines says both will stand strong to try and get full funding for the LWCF.
Still to come tonight, remote ultrasounds, how telemedicine is helping both doctors and moms-to-be all across the state.
Plus, just when you thought Rimrock Auto Arena was through with basketball for the season, a 32-team tournament rolls into town. Billings is preparing.
And in sports, Scott shows us if the Bobcat women are eliminated or still alive at your Big Sky Conference tournament.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.